It's Sunday, the 5th of December, 2021. In this evening's show, we are discussing another inexplicable heavy home defeat as the Pool succumb to a hat-trick of goals against the Hatters at a rain and wind-swept Bloomfield Road. And I'm John Aspinall. This is Seaside's podcast match reaction show. Blackpool 0, Luton Town 3.
It's already changed the world. Small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Seaside's podcast match reaction show on a Sunday. And I'm reckoning this is going to be a record low number of viewers for the Seasiders podcast, because when we get beat heavily, you don't check the league tables, you don't check the other scores, you don't watch Quest, and you certainly don't tune into this show when the likes of Sunday Songs of Praise and Country File are on. Hey, Tim.
Well, to be honest, when you said that it was when you started saying, I thought you were going to say it was a requiem for our performance on Saturday, because it was almost funeral-esque, isn't it? The analysis of what went on, and as we're going on to speak to it, it was very, very disappointing.
Very, very odd performance. Very odd performance. Sean, you were a tad more positive, weren't you, yesterday? Sometimes it's best to take a day off and reflect upon the game. I watched Quest this morning and we had a lot of chances, but we'll go on about the game anyway. So, welcome, Sean. Thanks for coming on. A chicken meal prepared is taking you the best part of an hour, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. And it's really shit as well. I've just had a taste and it's crap. So I'm just going to leave that there and just crack on.
Joe, what have I had for your Sunday dinner? Something Yorkshire-based, perhaps? Yorkshire pods?
I had 3 southern fried chicken fillets on 2 slices of bread, cut in half diagonally.
Proper student
That's
food.
posh.
That posh, diagonal is posh, isn't it? It's like
Bit of class.
us Lancashire lads. Anyway,
I am a Lancashire lad. What are you on about?
I know, but you're in Yorkshire now, so that's why you must, it must be posh Yorkshire, Rotherham.
No, there's nothing posh about Rotherham. Though
Anyway, listen, if
we
you're
are
having
getting a cinema, we are getting a cinema.
You can tell he's not a student anymore, because students, his Sunday dinner would have been pot noodle, wouldn't it? It would have been a chicken pot noodle or a beef pot noodle. If maybe some. So you're obviously
Who are you
moving up
talking
in the
about
world
here,
now.
Sean or Joe?
Sean there. Sean's left
Well,
his
he's going up in the world, isn't he?
He is, so he's actually
He's
eating
accredited.
food now rather than a load of shit. That,
He's got his
students normally
accredited.
eat.
An attempt, anyway, at least. I think I'll stick to the pot noodles from now on.
Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Tim, what have you had? I'll bet you've been. I think you've been out and you've been to somewhere like the Miller's Arms or Miller and Carter, perhaps. Something like that.
Do you know what I did this afternoon? I shouldn't say this because I shouldn't be able to do it at home yet. But I watched Bond this afternoon with a nice.
Nothing wrong with the Bondathon.
Did the new Bond with a nice bottle of English sparkling wine. And then we've had quite an easy tea, to be fair, because we couldn't be bothered.
Did you have some fargois with it and some quail eggs?
Fargois, no, it was sausage rolls.
That's better. Decent.
They're probably.
You can take the lad out of the north, but you can't take the north out.
They were probably from the Booth's deli counter. That was a really expensive one. I have noticed those myself while I was buying my Clayton Park Bakery meat potato pies, and I saw those sausage rolls, but they're ridiculously expensive.
Is it bad? Is it bad that the highlight of yesterday was probably the sausage roll that I bought from the bakery opposite the Bloomfield Brewhouse?
That's where you were going. Motoring down
I'll tell you
Bloomfield
what,
Road.
that bakery is absolute quality, isn't it?
It's ace, yeah.
Yeah, cheap and really good. So, before the game, Tim, you were in the exalted company of the hospitality section of the of Bloomfield Road, weren't you?
Well, before that, I went to the BST meeting, of course, and
Of course. Do you want to-
which was very informative. It's not like
What
you,
went on
John,
there?
to have things pinging at the side of you. Normally
I think
bollocking
it's
me
Joe.
for that.
It's Joe. He's just
It
slightly.
sounded like
Joe.
you.
We've not
on the
noticed, but we
slide,
have.
didn't
He's hiding.
Yeah, so Tim, just tell everyone about the BST meeting at the Armfield.
It was a great meet. We had Ben Mansford and Brett and Asher Hackett for the trust there, and they did Q&A for a good hour. So it's quite interesting to hear about things going on there. And then we had a very eloquent half an hour Q&A between Christine and Clark Carlisle. Clark Carlisle speaks very, very well about, of course, he was on the fan-led review as well. So he talks a little bit about mental health, because part of the fan-led review is dealing with players when they exit the game and all the problems they experience. And but he was also part of the fan-led review. And then we had Paul Maynard as well. But I think Scott Benton, I thought it was a no-show, but I think he turned up right as it finished. So he must have got detained elsewhere. But
probably got a second job.
It was
Conservative MP Scott Benton.
He was probably doing something in the Bahamas for
lobbied to come late. Yeah.
More like something in the toilets.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've read that in the papers today, Joe.
I need to leave. Okay, stop Cameron.
Read the Sunday Times article about drug taking in the palaces of Westminster.
I've got the Times on my phone, so I'll be googling that afterwards.
Hi guys, nice to see you.
In all seriousness, it was a great meeting, and then I was rudely interrupted at various stages by John's texts about all his problems, because you had a bit of an issue, didn't you? Because you weren't able to join us, unfortunately. But yeah, it was all right. I mean, at the end of the day, any day out of the football club is always dictated by the result, isn't it? So but I've got to say, there was Ludel Sylvester up there. So me and the chap on the next table, who was very complimentary about the pod. I forgot to take his name, otherwise I'd have done him a shout out. We stood up and gave it the full chorus when Ludo hit the stage. So it was all right.
Was he speaking in like an LOLO accent, or is he?
He was very, very LOLO.
It
was a little bit difficult to follow sometimes, but he's basically he's acting almost like a scout these days, I believe. So, but when he did the roll call of the players he used to train with at Barcelona, it was like OMG, you know, it was like a roll call of all the best players from the early 2000s, so and into 2010 onwards. So to say he had a pedigree background in relation to the training he did when he was a young lad is an understatement.
So obviously I wasn't in the stadium for one reason or another. We're supposed to be
you are going to tell us, aren't you? You're not going to keep us in suspense.
All I can say is, what a game to have missed.
Yes.
So my mum was supposed to be looking after Eddie. Unfortunately, she wasn't well enough to do it, and on the day of the game, couldn't get a babysitter. So I've asked, can I just bring him? He can sit on his iPad, sit on the floor. But no was the official word from those in power at the hospitality area. He said no. I had to pay 80 quid for a ticket for him. So obviously, wasn't going to be doing that, even though it was just sit on your iPad, Eddie, in the corner. I'd already promised my tickets had gone to someone else, so couldn't go. So I thought, right, I'm just going to go to booths and sulk at home. But I was quite glad I did, actually.
He was sending us, he was baiting us at the end with his pictures of him up with his feet up with his cheese and biscuits. while we're freezing. While we're freezing, watching us get tanked. So I think at the end of the day, you did draw the long, not the short straw.
I think you're right, Tim. Yeah, I'm quite happy not to be going off on a bit of a tangent tonight, everybody on the stream, because the game was not something we want to recount much. So do forgive us for not getting onto the match reaction straight away, but we'll do now. So let's do as we always do at the beginning of this show, talk about the match day 11. And let's bring up on screen Chris Maxwell returning for the quite unlucky Dan Grimshaw, Sterling, Epiteta, husband, James, Wintle, Dougal, Mitchell, Anderson, Dale, Yates. On the bench, Grimshaw, Gabriel, Connolly, Keogh, Carey, Bowler, and Lavery. Right, I'm sure we all have plenty to say about this. Obviously, Sean, the absence of Gary Medine was sent shockwaves through the West Stand where I sit, or would have been sitting, and the South Stand where Mitch sits. And no place for Bowler. So there's a lot of curveballs in there. What was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by Bowler because I mean, obviously with the Birmingham game, we've said our pieces about Bowler, so I wasn't surprised about him. I wasn't particularly surprised about Medine either because I think against Birmingham, when we set up in this way, the issue was obviously that we weren't getting runs in behind, we weren't sort of stretching the defence. So you're either going to have Yates or Lavery. I would have preferred Lavery, but he went with Yates. But generally, I was pretty happy with the lineup. I would have also brought Maxwell back in from the start. At the end of the day, before the Luton game, I can't recollect the last time that Maxwell let us down in goal. And as much as obviously Dan Grimshaw's done well, and I just think you can't suddenly say that Dan Grimshaw should now be like in place of Maxwell because Maxwell had one bad game. Maxwell's been consistently our best keeper for the best part of 2 years now. He will be our number one, and in the coming weeks he'll show why that is. So even after the game, I've not got any qualms with that, and I wouldn't have from the start either.
Okay, there was quite a few people on Twitter and the message boards going on about why is Maxwell been brought back. Grimshaw's done nothing wrong. Very good in hindsight, and we do have a captain hindsight lookalike on our team. So let's move on to him next. Tim, what did you think of the Maxwell incident?
I think
replacement.
I was a little bit surprised because it's always very difficult as a manager if you've got a player who's playing well in the shirt, when you take him out of the shirt and he hasn't actually done anything wrong, it then becomes a little bit more difficult to justify your position as manager, I think, because if you're saying to your players that certain players are going to play come what may, irrespective of how you've played, then I'm not sure that sets a particularly great precedent. But equally, I can understand why he did it. I mean, Maxwell at the end of the day is the club and team captain. And as Sean said, he's had an incredible 2 years. But I'm not sure bringing him straight back was necessarily the greatest idea. I was actually quite surprised. I thought he'd have stuck with Grimshaw at least for another game. But he did what he did, and I don't necessarily think it was a bad decision. I think the bit I was most surprised about, not that Medine didn't start, that Medine wasn't in the squad at all, and I don't want to start tittle tattle, but there's rumours he was seen leaving just before kick-off by quite a lot of people. Didn't look very happy. Now, whether they've had a fallout or whether he's been told he's not in the squad, I think there's some suggestion he might have picked up a bit of a niggle.
Yeah, I was going to say, so after the game, sort of speaking to Critchley, it was a groin injury that he'd picked it up on Tuesday in training, and then he'd sort of felt better through the week, but they just didn't want to risk it. So whether Medine's sort of gone, I feel like I'm fit to play, and Critchley and the backroom staff have kind of gone, would rather not. I mean, he's got a history of this type of injury. I think he'd have been a bit naive to go straight back into the squad if it's not 100%. Why take the gamble? And I don't think he would have made any difference either in that game, to be honest. So,
yeah. I think initially when I heard that he'd left the ground, I was a bit concerned. I thought, well, that's a bit worrying. But the flip side is he's wearing his heart on his sleeve, and if this has happened, he's extremely disappointed that they've decided not to play him, and he's spat his dummy out because he wants to be on the pitch. So he's shown his passion as well. So I think there's two ways of looking at it, and I'm sure Critchley will manage the situation appropriately. But if you're right, if it's right, and I hadn't heard all the story about the groin injury till afterwards, but if it's right that they weren't even going to pick him in the squad, then I can sort of understand why he's upset, and I can also understand that actually the club are thinking, let's just not risk him. It's not worth it.
Sean, you did say then it wouldn't have made any difference if he had played, but if it had been stood on the back post on when their opening goals come in, rather than having a midget marking.
We'll go on to the opening goal, but Husband's the one that drags Dale to mark the guy at the back post when he could have marked him himself, and instead zonally marks.
Is he really? I didn't notice that.
So it's actually, I don't know whether we're setting up mixed man and zonal, but it looked from the replays that we saw, it was Husband kind of pushes Dale onto Sonny Bradley at the back post. Husband's kind of marking zonally to watch a late runner. The late runner doesn't come, and Bradley's got the free header at the back post.
Joe, your thoughts on the lineup and the formation?
I'm kind of in the middle of what both Sean and Tim are saying about Maxwell. I wanted him to start. For me, he's club captain. What Sean said, he's never let us down. I think before yesterday, you could count the amount of mistakes he's made in 2 years, probably on one hand. It is harsh on Grimshaw. I think he's been excellent since he's come in. But ultimately, Maxwell's your number one. As for the actual setup, I was a little bit disappointed with us being the home team that we didn't go with a bit more attacking emphasis, especially like with fullbacks. I would have had Gabriel instead of Sterling. I like Sterling, but I think Gabriel offers you a lot more going forward. And I would have set up 4-4-2. I know that Medine was out of the team, but I think they're a very physical team. And I think if we set up similarly to how we did against West Brom, maybe we would have had a bit more luck. I don't know. But yeah, what do I know, eh?
Well, none of us can second guess Critchley's teams. Maybe it's going to be his undoing this as the season progresses if the results don't sort of pick up a bit. But let's move on to the game then. So Sean, Luton kind of started the game on the front foot, but we had the most clear-cut chance, I'd say, of the game on 22nd minutes. They had the ball in the net, or side netting, didn't they? But how do you think Blackpool started the game?
Yeah. First 10 minutes, I think Luton settled quite well in their shape. But I think that what we did well, I think, was playing through the thirds and building from the back. And I think even as much as the frustrations, obviously, in the final third and with the defensive aspects, I think that's probably a lot better than we have done in terms of just building the right way, playing the right way, and trying to build. And we did constantly get the ball into good areas of the field throughout the match. And I think that it was a good start for me. It was positive, obviously, but then you kind of get to once you've missed a couple of chances, you're like, here we go again. You kind of your confidence in our ability to finish off in the final third or whip in a good delivery in the final third diminishes a bit. And as we did set up really well off the ball, then I'll give the wingers the credit, obviously, off the ball as well as we always do. And we were sort of winning the ball high up the park again and doing what we're doing. And again, I said again after the match, I thought that we played some really, really nice football, some of the best stuff we played this season in the first half. Similarly at Birmingham, it's really nice stuff that we're playing. But as soon as we're getting into the final third, it's snatching at things. It's the lack of composure, lack of confidence. And I think, to be honest, it's getting to a stage now where you're kind of starting to question some of the ability of these players, of whether they are just not good enough to do that on a consistent basis.
Tim, over to you then. Like we've mentioned, there was a couple of half chances for either side, I guess, in the first half or first third of the game, but we had the biggest chance, I'd say, on 28 minutes. Ryan Wintle unleashing an absolute pile driver into the south end of the stadium. It looked like it was going in.
Yeah, I think the keeper did, I remember the one rightly where the keeper ended up just tipping it round the post, didn't he? So, I mean, we had a lot of possession in the first half, generally, I thought. But what was very difficult to tell when you're actually in the stadium, but most certainly when you're in the prawn sandwich seats quite high up, was which way the wind was blowing. So I think as what we saw as in the particularly as I think it got worse in the second half was that we very much had I think we had the elements in our favour in the first half, and I think that helped us because I think we had 60% possession. that.
Are you trying to take Sean's job here? What's going
Well,
on?
no, I haven't mentioned XGs yet.
Yeah, X possession. You have to put an X in front first.
But I do, I thought, Winkle, it was a decent shot by Winkle. I think my concern is generally is that even when we've got possession, and this is sort of been borne out over the last 3 games, where we've had good periods of possession, but not really looked like we were going to score. And we're talking about Winkle's 25-yard shot, and that was probably the pick of our chances. And whether this is because we keep persisting with playing one up front, and therefore what you ended up finding was that Jerry was going all over the place rather than, and we don't seem to have a centre forward who's in the middle to actually get on the end of things. I don't know what Sean thinks about this, but I sometimes think that when we're playing this pressing game with one up front, the one up front's having to do a lot of covering, and when we do get possession, we just haven't got necessarily the guy in the right place. And I've seen some mention about the inverted wingers, and which is fine, but when they're going out the outside, they're not crossing the ball particularly well. And so I'm disappointed that when we've had that possession the first half, and I think if I look back, we had 3 or 4 chances. I think we hit the post at one point, and I kept thinking, like, we've had 4 chances now, and we haven't really tested the keeper with any of them. And Winkle's was probably the exception to that, where he's actually made a save. But there's a pattern developing. I think we need to work a way into actually making sure that we get more chances, and secondly, that the good quality chances, and that we're actually hitting the proverbial barn door rather than skying it over or putting it into the side netting or whatever we seem to be doing at the moment.
Joe, we did have what's that keeper name? Shea. He's made another worldie of a save, hasn't he, in that first half? If you remember, was it header from Dale, and he's just tipped it around the post. So on another day, we could have been 2-0 up before they've scored. It's fine margins, isn't it? Fine lines.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Tim coming out of the game when I was hiding under the main reception area, waiting for the apocalyptic weather to chill out a little bit. And I think Tim could tell that I weren't happy. I called us shambolic second half.
No, what you said was, you said, get me on that effing pod tomorrow night because I'm going to give it plenty. That's what you said.
I did, but I've calmed down.
I know.
I've watched it back. I've watched all the key parts. And like you say, Mitchell's had a shot. It's hit one of their players, trickled towards the goal and just hit the post and got out. Their keeper's made a really good save from Wintle. One of them goes in. It changes the entire complexion of the game. But also,
he's made 2 worldies. People have forgotten that other chance where he's adjusted his feet and he's just got his hand to it, tipped it wide. So I know exactly what you mean, though. You come out raging, don't you? You kind of your judgment.
What's worrying?
I think your judgment's clouded straight after the game.
Yeah,
you forget these.
What's worrying for me is we've got wingers at the club that can't cross the ball, and at the minute we don't look like scoring. I know we had them 2 or 3 chances, but second half there was never one part of the game where I thought, oh, if we get a goal here, we're right back in it. I didn't see us scoring at all in the second half.
The problem is, Joe, and I think it's our Phil, who's been hitting AVFT today, and with his hindsight comments.
Captain
but he did
hindsight. Where you
but
go?
There is a valid point about the inverted wingers in that because they're playing on the wrong foot, they're never going to particularly be comfortable at getting a good cross on the sides that they're playing on. Which is fine as long as you're converting stuff for them coming inside. But I don't see much evidence at the moment of us actually converting stuff. I think probably the standout moment is when Bowler scores against Fulham, where he comes inside and scores. But I'm not remembering many chances where we've scored from the players coming inside and hitting one. And I think if I'm sure Stato's got some input on this, but the problem is and if you're not going to play Medine, what are you actually going to get from putting crosses in from the byline anyway? And I don't know, but I don't.
A quick
I'm not.
question.
I think we've got to look
for all
at.
of you.
I think we've got to look at the way we approach the game and what we're doing with those wide players, because for me we look far too predictable when we get into the wide positions at the moment. With Bowler arguably being the exception, he was awful last week, and I think he's better this week. But as we'll come on to discuss, but other than that, I just don't see us scoring from wide.
I've got a question for all of you. Do you think that we're too soft? Because I looked at their team and it was another. Well, they got some big lads. Do you think that's the one thing we're missing? And I know it's very generic. We need a bully boy, big lad, shithouse, basically.
So essentially, Alan Campbell, who is in their central midfield, is someone we were linked with. And we've been linked with, I mentioned it today about Jean Doe Fuchs from Dundee United. And we're linked with these types of combative ball-winning midfielders that kind of break up the play and then sort of play the play onto the more progressive midfielders. And I think, personally, that our end game is to have a sit-in sort of combative ball-winning midfielder and then just having two advanced central midfielders rather than having a 10. So then you'd play Keshi in central midfield rather than playing him in the 10, and sort of having that license to then be able to advance with two central midfielders without leaving yourself short defensively. And I think that's how they set up in the 3-5-2 with those midfielders. That's sort of the balance they set in the midfield three, and I think that's the way we'd go. But just coming back onto the inverted wingers kind of thing, I think it's hard for me because I think that this is the right way to play and the right system to play long term. And I think that in January we'll make the improvements and bring in the quality required so that we do end up seeing this as the system going forward. But inverted wingers do a lot of work for the wing backs as well, which is important. And they sort of drag the fullbacks inside so that you're offering the width. But as Joe said, I think Sterling doesn't quite offer what Gabriel can offer going forward in terms of putting balls into the box. But I don't think even necessarily if you play Mitchell and Dale as a winger, I don't expect them to be delivering quality balls either. I don't think Mitchell's ever been a player to consistently deliver what you need. I thought Reece James was going to be that. Reece James was poor delivery-wise against Luton. It's just we don't have what we need. I think it's a bit of a reality check of we don't have players that will consistently deliver quality when it's needed. You've got Keshi had his moments there, but Keshi isn't going to consistently week after week score goals like that. You can't rely on that. So it's in terms of, like I keep saying, we need to keep playing the same way because we are getting into dangerous areas. But if we just consistently don't have the quality required, regardless of what system you play, you're going to keep wasting chances because that's just how it works if you've not got the quality up top. But I think Wintle in particular is someone who I think if we can keep hold of him, if we have a more defensive, sort of free him up a bit more in terms of being a more progressive midfielder. I think that in central areas, he got forward a lot more against Luton than he generally has before. And I thought he had an excellent game and he was the real link man between the two. And I know you're saying we need to win ugly too. But if you look at Swansea, for an example, they're going to have a consistent way of playing because they are going to specifically continue to recruit to fit each mould so that they've got the correct players, and it's a work in progress. And I think it was a real reality check for me because I've kind of been getting a bit carried away, but ultimately we should still be in League One in terms of the long-term plan, and that the year after was going to be the Championship promotion. We got to the Championship a year early. So at the end of the day, we've kind of, because of how poor a lot of the bottom sides in the division are, we have this gap now to kind of persist with what we're wanting to do long term. And I think, we'll have these moments where we go on runs where we're not scoring, or we've got these ones where we want to be trying to quickly change it up for a short-term solution. But I just think you have to persist with it long term. And I just think that's the way where if you think in 2-3 years, I think we'll be better off for it.
Do you think that we've kind of made a rod for our own back by beating the so-called bigger teams in the division, like your Fulhams, your Sheffield Uniteds away, drawing with Bournemouth after being 2-0 down, beating Blackburn Rovers, who are now having a very good season? Do you think it's the fact that expectations have risen so much with the results from earlier on in the season against big teams?
I think it's the thing with that is that you need more quality up top against the smaller teams than you do against the bigger teams, because you're coming up against a lower block that you're going to have to break a team down, whereas you're not necessarily going to have to do that against promoted sides, because we're happy to sit off the ball and then counter. And when you counter and you're outnumbering the opposition anyway, So there's less of a need to have to actually break defences down. And I think that's the difference. We struggle to break down defences who are compact and well organised. And I think Luton, to say that they're quite a high pressing team, they were well organised in terms of their defensive structure as well. And I think they showed that. So, because that's first and foremost what teams like that are going to do. I personally think Luton will end up a playoff team. I said at the start of the season, I think they're a really good side. And I think that Nathan Jones is onto a good thing there. But if you're looking at like Peterborough coming up next, they're not going to be trying to play out or be expansive. They're going to, first of all, set up as a tight defensive structure, and we've got to try and break that down. And that's sometimes when we're not showing consistent quality on the front foot, particularly from out wide. I mean, I said in my piece that there's 2 goals and 3 assists between all 4 of the so-called natural wingers from 29 appearances, which is just nowhere near the consistent levels that you need. And I think that I can't see how number 2 priority after a ball-winning midfielder isn't a wide player of better quality than that. I think more so than a striker, personally. I would put that above a striker, because I think that Lavery and Yates and even Medine have the quality there to score consistently if they're getting the right delivery. So I think that is the priority, if I'm being honest.
Tim, you have mentioned quite a few times pre-season and as the season started that we're lacking that presence in central midfield. We're lacking goals from central midfield. And I think that is still the case, isn't it? Yeah,
and you're looking for that player that every team's looking for, aren't you? And interestingly, today, I believe Kieran Dewsbury-Hall got his first start for Leicester. So just because we're talking about that particular position, I'd like to take the opportunity of congratulating him on that. I think his progression over the 2 years since he started playing with us, I think he got 20 man of the matches in his time at Luton, which is incredible. And shows what a great player he is. Now, trying to find that type of player is like the proverbial needle in a haystack, isn't it? Because we had it, and we've been quite lucky because we had it with Charlie Adam, and we've had it with other players as well in the intervening period. But it isn't the easiest position to find, and everybody wants one, and everybody wants somebody who's going to get you 10 or 15 goals from centre mid. And those players, if they're already established, are worth a lot of money. And if you're trying to find one, then it is about your scouting network and trying to find something that's a little bit different. But we haven't got that player who runs at the opposition for midfield for me, and maybe we're not really set up that way to do that. Perhaps you do that a little bit more when you're playing. I don't know what Sean thinks, but when you've got 3 in midfield, where you've got one and maybe have a little bit more of a license to roam with the 2. We did, didn't we, with Charlie and with Varney and Southern behind them, and they've got a little bit more license to do what they want. I think we did pretty much the same when Kieran Dewsbury-Hall was here. So perhaps our system doesn't quite suit that type of player anyway. But we don't score enough from midfield. I mean, Dougal sort of bucked the trend with his 2 at Wembley, but he's not a goal-scoring midfielder, and Wintle isn't suggesting he's really a goal-scoring midfielder. So we end up very, very much reliant on Keshi and the centre forwards. And at the moment, the centre forwards aren't scoring goals. And Lavery, since he's come back from injury for me, looks like he needs a few games to come off the bench to get back into it. I'm not quite sure he's at the races yet. And I think it's fair to say that Jerry's not quite adapted to the move up so far, and most certainly on the goal scoring front. So yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum as to where our listen. The proof of the pudding is our goal average is less than a goal a game over the season so far, and that means that you've got to keep a clean sheet to win a game.
And Joe, we're certainly not keeping clean sheets, are we? To eminently, what's the word?
Shit.
Yeah, where it's just the first goal, just terrible. I just can't believe how many goals of that type we've conceded this season.
I've looked at it, and Sean's right. The replay, you see, husband literally just grabs Dale by the shirt as the cross is coming across. And
go on, little fella.
Throws him towards the big burly bastard that heads it in. It's like, it's literally such a mismatch. It's unbelievable. And another thing that I want to get on to regarding the defence, what's Gretterson done? What's Gretterson done wrong exactly? Not even to be in the equation. I don't quite understand it. I mean, Husband's been a very able centre defender for us, but you've got Gretterson who's not getting a look in. You've got Connolly who's a natural centre back. Yeah. I don't quite understand why Husband, especially against Land of the Giants type teams. I mean that their number 11 is it Adebayo or something. He's huge.
Adebayo.
Yeah, you've got Ekpateta who could deal with him, but if he's up against Husband, it's a bit of a mismatch. Whereas somebody like Connolly, I mean, even Keogh, I mean, for me, if you're fit enough to be on the bench, you're fit enough to start.
I think Keogh will be in next game.
Yeah, Keogh's basically in for Derby. But I think because I have this,
and it's Derby as well.
I don't think
there's extra spice.
Yeah. I have this thing with Husband where I think that he's an able defender when we set up to sort of we're defending our 18-yard box, we're sort of standing our ground, like the West Brom game, like the Birmingham game. I thought he was really, really good in both of those games because but I think that he struggles when you're coming up against a side that are quite nimble in their movement and high pressing. And it was that thing with at the start of the season with Keogh where it was like anticipating the fact that Keogh was going out and going to try and get the ball, and then he was coming out with Keogh at the same time rather than sort of having the mind to cover back. And I just don't think he has the natural instincts of a centre half, and I think it kind of shows in games like the Luton game where positional sense was key throughout the game. If you put a foot wrong, then they're in behind. You were kind of missing that. And I think that's sort of a long-term reason why James Husband shouldn't be at centre half. But at the end of the day, he's not going to be at centre half long-term. Critchley wants him in there for the experience, clearly, and the fact he hadn't put a foot wrong for a while.
I think the other reason that he needs to play is obviously the points per game with James Husband.
Of course, yeah. But I'm sure I think it'll be pretty nailed on that James drops to the bench and Husband's left back and Keogh's back in at centre half for Derby.
Tim, Joe's got a very valid point, hasn't he? You've got specialist players in specialist positions, and you shoehorning a left back into centre half. And James is okay, isn't he? He's but why not play Husband in his proper position? And we've got Gretterson, who, let's not forget, when him and Ekpateta together went on an amazing run, and we looked so assured at the back. And
I think he's the one player. I think what we've seen is when James has come in. And when Dale's come in and when various other players have come in, we've seen them do, sort of give a good account of themselves for the most part. And the one person I think who hasn't been given a fair crack of the whip this year is Gretterson for me. I think, bearing in mind how good he was. Now there must be a reason
as well, Tim. It's those diagonals that we're not.
But there must be a reason for it. And Critchley must not think he's got the capacity to step up, because if he did think he had the capacity to step up, we'd have seen him start by now.
Wasn't even on the bench.
Because you've got, with Keogh out, who was, probably at the start of the season wasn't necessarily expected to play every game anyway. But when you got Keogh out, you'd have thought he'd have at some point he'd have given him a go in there and see what he could do. And he's just not. There's not been a sniff, has there? All I can say is there must be a reason behind it, and whether the reason justifies the decision, I don't know. But whether he's not quite performing in training the way he was last year, I don't know. But it's one that bemuses me. And
you got that lad from Leeds as well, like Oliver Casey. What's happened to him?
Yeah.
No, that's not happening, I don't think. I was going to say...
pray tell, Sean. Pray tell. Come on. Share it. Share it with the room.
He's so far out of favour. It's just one of those, and it just hasn't worked. I presume that he's probably going to go out on loan in January. But Husband didn't necessarily play badly by any stretch. He was fine. But I think as we come on to the second goal, I think he would have reacted better at left back than Reece James did for their goal as well at the back post. And I think I think when we see from open play, we don't react well to late runs into the box, and it's similar for set pieces because it always is like that back post header that comes in at the last minute, and that's, I think, the downfall on both sides.
I better link something up now, aren't I? So, Tim, obviously disappointing to go one behind at half time. Second half, we've not really come out firing on all cylinders, and to me, there was an air of inevitability of us going 2 down.
I think what we saw at the beginning of the second half, we saw the elements probably take a slight turn for the worse. My perception was that the wind got up a bit more, and the conditions, frankly, were atrocious. I don't know whether it came across on TV with your feet up and your cheese and biscuits on your lap, but I can promise you that even in the gods of the West Stand, it was noticeably different, I think, in the second half, and so I don't think that worked in our favour. And where in the first half I couldn't quite make out whether we had the elements or not. In the second half, I don't think there was any doubt that the elements were against us. I think we saw with Maxwell's kicks that they weren't going as far. I know somebody mentioned in the chat about the first goal and Maxwell fumbled it, but I think that was partially the elements that caused that. But it was. I'm trying to think. It's a while since I've seen conditions that bad in the second half, and I was thinking, if I was on that pitch as you're looking down towards the north and that wind will have been coming into your face and rain like lashing you, it must have been pretty grim. I think we were dealing with a team who were better set up to deal with the conditions. I'm going to try and outstat Sean again here now, and I believe that they play more long balls than anybody else in the Championship, don't they? And I think that probably suits that type of condition where we're trying to play neat passing football, which in some respects, when you keep it on the deck, it should work better. But when you're trying to play the football in awful conditions, quite often it just doesn't happen. And if you're playing the percentage game and wellying balls up front and into the box and just playing, which is clearly part of the Luton pattern, then with big lads at the back and big lads at the front, then in that type of game, I think you're going to get a higher success rate than you are trying to play the way we play. And but the conditions definitely deteriorated for me in the second half, and I think that was, I think that meant that they converted chances that we weren't able to convert at the other end. I think it had an influence on it. I'm not making excuses, but I think actually when I look how many chances we had compared with how many good chances they had, I don't actually think they were materially different over the game.
It always seems to be the case in these games where we're getting kind of heavily beaten. Huddersfield, they just take that when they get a chance. Their Land of the Giants team, they just seem to knock it in, don't they? And we're trying to overplay in the games.
I think the difference comes because we create a lot of low quality chances, like a large quantity of low quality chances, because we've not quite got that cutting edge to sort of feed into a big chance. Whereas they will put in a quality ball into the box at the back post, and you've got a 9 times out of 10 someone's going to head that away because of the quality of the delivery, and that's the difference maker at the moment. Is that it's like even in Stoke game, it's like similar sort of patterns of play, and this is the frustration, isn't it? I think by about the hour mark, we were kind of like, well, we just don't have the quality here to break this team down because we're not for putting away our chances when we've got them. So that creeps in. I don't care what anyone says, but about like you've got to think if you're a player, that mentality must creep into you in that point of the game.
The only chance I remember us having in the second half was an effort from Reece James, which the keeper tipped over. That was the only real clear-cut chance.
It wasn't even a great shot, was it? It was always going to be saved.
We're shooting into bodies, aren't we? Because we're not incisive enough to get that final pass to get in behind, and we're not stretching the opposition defence enough. And it's frustrating because we're set up to do that, and we can do that. And I think over time we will start doing that again, but we're not drawing their defence out enough to give Lavery or Yates a run in behind so that they actually have a good quality chance at goal. And that's why I struggle to kind of slate Yates or Lavery or even Medine at this point. Like against Birmingham, I kind of said I thought it was all right. It's just if you're not getting fed these chances, you're on a hard into nothing because you're having to come and collect deep yourself. And then just adding another body in front of the defence, which is exactly not what we're wanting to do. That's why we're so stagnant in front of goal.
Tim, 7 goals at home all season. You're spitting out a few stats on this evening's show. There's another one. 7 goals at home. It ain't a good statistic
in
at
how
all.
many games? That must be. Is that in 9 games now?
That's a quick look.
9,
so
10 games.
Yeah, with 21 games played, so it'll be
say 10
games. Yeah, it's not good, is
enough.
it?
No, not good enough. And we've conceded probably double that, haven't we? Because we've had two threes in there, and it does worry me. And I think it sort of and we've got a great atmosphere at home, but we aren't. We need to see.
They need to give us more. I
was praying for like a high scoring game yesterday because most of the games probably Preston apart. I'm not sure how many games we've actually scored more than 1 goal. I think Blackburn we scored 2, didn't we, as well? So we've got a couple of games where we've got 2, and other than that, I can't think of any other game where we've scored more than 1. And we need to address this sort of this dearth of goals, to be honest. So how we do it, but we are playing. Listen, and I think there's a valid point that was said. I can't remember mentioned it before about us being a year ahead of ourselves. In fact, when at the BST meeting, I sort of put a question to Ben Mansford about this because I think we are ahead of where they projected that we would be, and so I think to a certain degree, whilst we've got quite a good squad, when you're comparing it man for man in the Championship, we're behind, and I think that they were probably we've if you go back to October, November last year when we were still in the bottom half of League One, I don't think anybody expected us to get promoted. So all the planning doesn't assume that you're going to be in the Championship. So then you're playing catch up, and I think what we will find players slotting into our problem positions over the next 12 months, 2 years, which will make us a better team. But that you can't do that overnight. And we've seen already with Critchley that he won't just go and sign anybody. He wants certain players for certain positions. And it's a very Klopp-esque approach to things, which we've spoken about before, where Klopp won't just take anybody. He waited for his keeper and we waited for our right backs, and we're prepared to lose points and lose games not to compromise. And I think we will see certain positions filled in the next 12 months that will make us a better team and hopefully complete the jigsaw.
Tim, how about we start playing in our away kit at home?
No, I'm a great fan of our away kit. So, but we do seem to play a lot better in that. But I think the away kit it's the fact that we're playing away, and sometimes that gives you more freedom of expression, doesn't it? I think because the onus is on the home team to come at you, and it gives you more time to get behind them and play a counter-attacking game that probably suits the personnel we've got. I think
as well, it's the run. Like I was saying about it's having the bravery to play the risky pass in behind, because if you're thinking about the games where we have played well at home, Lavery in behind against Blackburn, the ball from Yates into Medine against Preston, these are the types of sort of moves that we need to be putting together more often, and being brave enough to just try that risky pass, because it's much better being dispossessed in those areas than it is getting dispossessed in the build-up play because we've been fannying about for too long. So you just need to have this. I don't see wingers at the moment that are taking on the mantle and being brave enough to sort of keep trying these sorts of things. And I think that's what kind of lets us down a bit. For me, it's the wide areas that are the issue.
Tim, where do we go from here? Obviously, we've gone 3-0 down. We won't talk about that final nail in the coffin, but how do we address this slump, and where do you see us going from here?
I think we're always good. We talk of a slump, and actually, when you analyse the performances over the slump in inverted commas, I don't think we've actually played that badly. So I'm not as worried as I would be if we were getting. We sort of got tanked if you look at the result yesterday, but I don't think we got tanked in relation to the way we played against them. So we've got a run of games now, which I think are all potentially winnable. We actually, had to navigate.
Derby away, Peterborough at home, Huddersfield
Hull
away, Borough at home, Hull away, Hull at home. So yeah.
So
like you say,
there's a few winnable games in there. The issue will be whether we've got the tenacity and the intelligence to break teams down who might be coming to defend. Because as I said, I'm a bit concerned that when we do go out wide, we look a little bit too predictable. So it's going to be interesting to see. But we're going to have to go. I think we're going to that run of 5 games. We've got to be looking for at least 2 wins and maybe a draw. I'd like to think that's what we should be aiming for. But when we look at the teams we have played and that we've navigated through, we didn't. The much talks about we should have beaten QPR. So
think of the Bournemouth game, think of the Fulham game. We've dominated these top teams. That Reading performance. So
and the West Brom, the West Brom, we've gone toe to toe with West Brom and performed admirably. So bear in mind that we've come up arguably too early. I think we've got to look back and say if we hadn't had this really sort of extremely good October spell, where I think we got a bit giddy. We'd actually be quite happy with where we are.
Yeah.
And I was having a bit of banter with Tom Harrison because I sent him Joe's video just to liven up his Sunday evening. And he came back to me and said, giving Critchley new contracts worked well, hasn't it? And I said, well, we've just come off the shittest run we're going to have all season and we're still above you. So put him back in his box.
What did he say to him, Big Fat Boo? Get out!
He came back, he said, it's like claiming to be the biggest midget in the room on that argument.
Probably sore about losing another derby.
Yeah. So I didn't pull him about Rovers actually. I might go and just Yankees chain again later on about that one. I think
they can't win them all. They generally win there, don't they? But...
Yeah. You can't win every derby.
I think Tim,
maybe.
The pertinent point there, Tim, that you just said is we'd have all taken being 15th after 21 games and on 27 points. And
exactly.
So we're 11 points clear of the drop, aren't we?
Yeah,
points
exactly.
Clear of the relegation zone. And I think it's like you were saying, Tim, if we'd have just gone win, lose, draw, win, lose, draw, win, lose, draw as our form guide, I think everyone would have been just none the wiser. And now because it's just sort of came in clumps, then we're a bit more worried about it because, as you say, we've kind of defied expectations for a long time. But like we've still got one of the lowest budgets in the division. We're just smarter in the way that we spend, but like, at the end of the day, there's teams that are just outspending us. And
I think just going back to the BST meeting, one of the interesting things that, and I think we've got to be prepared for this as fans, is that I think because I asked Ben Mansford about our strategy and how we're going to do it, and I think to me it was good to hear that I think we're going to sort of follow like a Brentford style model. So I think we might find that some of our better players end up being sold at some point, but as long as it's reinvested and we see ongoing positivity in relation to the way we're playing and the way we're approaching games, then I think we've got to live with that. Because if you're going to balance the books in the Championship, we're never going to be able to go toe to toe with the ones at the top with the parachute payments and the 30,000 crowds. We're just never ever going to be able to do it. And so we've got to go that Brentford model, which is you've got a good player. If you can get 7.5, 10 million for one of those players, then you cash your chips in and you invest you invest a 2 million in a decent player, and you build organically from there and hopefully get to the point where you can actually challenge at the top end of the league. But that's where the interesting bit's going to become, because we can't be going out there and spending 20 grand a week on players, and we shouldn't expect Simon to do that, because it's it needs to be as sustainable a business model as it can actually be. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want us just doing becoming another basket case club who's beholden to an owner writing off loans, as Preston have done and other teams have virtually the top. Everybody in that division, there's probably half the teams in that division are losing shed loads. I think Birmingham are probably going to be facing point sanctions. We've seen all the stuff with QPR. Let's do it sensibly, and let's listen. we're enjoying the football. We're enjoying watching the team. It's a fantastic experience going to the game. Even yesterday, which was, you lose 3-0, and I still enjoyed the game. I still enjoyed the atmosphere. I still enjoyed everything about the day. And we've got to be realistic about where we are and where we can expect to finish. We are, we were 6th a few weeks ago. We might get up to 10th again, but let's not, we've got to play the long game with this, I think, because we are most certainly ahead of where we should be at.
Any closing thoughts on the game, gentlemen, before we move on to the play ratings? Joe?
One of them. It's done. Just forget it. Can't change the result. Just focus on Derby on Saturday, which will be a tough game. Because in reality, they're only 3 points behind us. If you take the points deduction out of the equation, it's not the gimme everybody thinks it'll be. It'll be a tough game.
Not. I've got a bad feeling about that. Got a bad feeling about getting on Ashley's coach as well. Tim being kicked off it.
Have
It's
you?
been a good 2 weeks for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's because there's a bit of a pattern developing here, isn't there?
Maybe it's me. Yeah, last one to book on. So
You should have done it earlier when I told you to.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay, so 3-0. Can't win them all, but 15th in the table, 27 points, 11 off the drop, as Joe said. So onwards and upwards. Right, let's move on to the play ratings section of the show. Chris Maxwell. Tim, you can start with Chris Maxwell. Lowest score of the season, I will wager.
Yeah, I don't think he covered himself in glory in his first comeback game. 6 for me.
Dujon Sterling. Sean. And Sean, are you going to give exactly the same ratings in your Lights Live article? I noticed
I was about to pull it up.
he didn't implement the FPRS system, Tim, as I said on a tweet. He would have been hearing from our crack legal team.
Yeah, it's patented.
And he infringed our copyrights.
Yeah, look, I think he was probably at fault for the second goal. I think he should have stopped the cross. I don't think he offers as much as Gabriel going forward, but I think he has the capacity to, but I just don't think he's shown it yet. But defensively, fairly sound apart from that. So I'll go 6+.
Good to see the FPRS is being used in its recognised play.
I actually wanted to give him back.
should do it for a laugh on the next article.
Thinking about it.
We'll just charge Lancashire Live a small fee.
Yeah.
In fact, we need some sort of royalty system. Can you get that written down?
I'll see what I can do.
Get some assured salary. Send him back to pot noodles.
Oh, after that cooking, to be fair, it won't be long.
Right, Joe, Big Marv.
I'm going to go 7. I thought he was probably the best of a bad bunch at the back.
Fair comment.
7.
Tim, James' husband, the pusher of Owen Dale to mark the Giants.
Yeah, I think
minus a point for that.
I was going to say, I think he loses at least a half a point for that. I mean that was David against Goliath. That wasn't it? It was. I almost chuckled when I watched it back because I thought, "What the hell have we got Dale marking him for?"
I was ready to slate Dale this evening. It's like because he didn't even jump, but he was probably too. He was probably too kind of off.
He was probably too intimidated by the.
He probably didn't know what was going on after being pushed around and bullied. You're a bit sort of put off kilter, aren't you, when that happens? You don't know what's going on.
I don't think he did a massive lot wrong, but I think that's probably his worst game in the centre of the defence. And I think we will see Keogh back next week. And I think we'll see if Husband starts, it will be the left back. And I think natural order probably is ready to be restored. Hopefully we'll see a back line of Gabriel, Ekpateta, Keogh and Hobby. So he's only getting a 6 for me.
Fairs. Sean, Reece James.
Yeah, I was just going to say for them, watch Keogh come in and be like textbook start of the season, Keogh. Yeah, no, Reece James.
Will Mooney, Will.
Funny, won't it? Just like, oh, here we go, great. Yeah,
Just say he'll be dog shit. He'll be really good.
Yeah, exactly. James doesn't have good enough consistent quality for me out wide when it comes to delivering balls into the box at the moment. He gets into the right areas, which is a start because I do think he progresses us up the field quite well. I thought he could have tracked the runner better for the second goal. Whether he'd have got there for the header, I don't know, but he could have at least done more to track the runner. And I think his positional sense was a little bit lax. But a 6, I think, is fair enough.
We were saying Luke Garbutt's going to struggle to get back into the side.
I still think that because I think he wasn't offering out. Like James is just he progresses up the field naturally, and he's just got more. As much as I was saying, his positional sense was a little bit lax for that second goal. I think generally he's just more of a adept player mentally in terms of his positional sense and stuff in the game compared to Garbutt.
I think he's a League One player. Ryan Mental, Joe. Leggy League One donkey. No,
League One donkey.
6+.
Boo. He was class.
Boo. Yeah, big fat boo. Big fat boo.
Horrendous boo.
Yeah, I'm with Sean. On a very few occasions, I'll say I agree with Sean.
One of his best games in all shit.
Yeah, come on.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Nobody had a great game yesterday.
He did. I thought he had a great game. I genuinely thought he had a great game. Well. For him individually, I thought he had a great game and one of his best in his Blackpool shirt.
7-.
Can he?
Go. We've wedged him ever so slightly up.
Yes, we've worked
just for that shot and the actual willing for a Blackpool midfielder to go past the halfway line.
He took on the mantle, didn't he? He was the guy that was taking on the mantle to, come on, let's keep progressing the ball. We could have been flat on the hour mark if it wasn't for Ryan Wintle. So I think that as much as we want a forward player to step up, at least we've got one in central midfield that's going to take it on like that.
I think he recognised the fact that something needed to happen, and he did grab the ball by the horns. Yeah. So I think that's pretty harsh, Joe. But he went fully entitled to.
I'm a harsh man. 7 minutes.
You're a hard man to please. Tim, Kenny Dougal, flattering to deceive again, out of form for me.
Yeah. I think the problem is there's no competition really in there. We've seen when they put Conley in there that it's.
Well, there is, but it's always fucking injured.
Yeah, we've got glass ankles. Who hopefully, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any real indication as to when he's going to come back, and it wouldn't surprise me.
I've had a cleaner bill of health than him this year.
About your life. We are missing Grant Ward. We are missing Grant Ward, though, aren't we?
Yeah. I don't quite know when he's likely to be back. I saw him tweeting today because it was his birthday yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's off crutches, which is a start. So,
but that suggests it's probably going to be February, doesn't it? If he's only just off crutches now, so. But we've got you got Virtue. There's no suggestion of Virtue being back anytime soon. I don't think so. Listen, a great fan of Dougal, but yeah, he is what he is, and he's never going to be the player to drive the ball forward, is he? So it's a 6 for me. It's about the lowest score I think I've ever given him.
That was in my head, Tim. Dimmy, Mitchell, Sean, a bit of an enigmatic performance.
Yeah, I think he's good off the ball again. I think that's his probably standout at the moment. But he is sort of if he did have a on the ball side to the game at the moment, he'd be top draw. But he snatches at chances. I mean, there was a couple of chances that he really just sort of, oh shit, we're in the box, let's just swing a leg at it. Kind of just no confidence in his ability to take it on the mantle and have a bit of composure in there. And out wide, his deliveries aren't great, but I don't think they necessarily were great when he played on the left wing. So I don't think that's about what side he's on. I think that's just generally who he is. And like we think about when he first came in, I don't think I expected him to be a championship starting winger. We've kind of molded him to the point where he may well be from time to time, but I don't think he's the long-term answer. And I think we'll probably look to upgrade that position in January. So 6.
Keshi, Anderson, Joe.
6+. He tried
Any
his best, bless him, but nothing really came off for him yesterday.
One of those games. Owen Dale, Tim, had a lot of high hopes for this young man after that Reading performance, but he hasn't backed it up, has he?
No, it's like after the Lord Mayor's show, I think it's the expression, isn't it? I'm not going to be harsh. I'm going to go a generic 6. But it's a bit uninspiring, I think. Don't think he'll start the next game.
No.
He's the one, though. He's the one that I think if we do upgrade in other areas, I think he's good enough to be a consistent starter for us. I just think with his movement, and he does get into the right areas a lot. And I don't think he necessarily snatches at chances. It's just that when he gets the ball in those areas, he's kind of just, there's bodies around him all the time. So I think if there's one player out of the array of those sorts of players that we've got at the moment that will step up, I think it'll be him.
Finally, Jerry, Tim.
I did have Dale. I don't really want to give it to somebody else, but I'll take him if you want. I just don't think he did anything. Bar his 360 turn. He needs to find his yin to his yang. I don't know. It's a 6-.
Go on, Joe, since I got this order wrong. You can do Jerry as well.
Oh,
Unmute.
get yourself off mute.
Yeah.
I'd agree, 6-.
Yeah. It's just not happening, is it? Right, before we do, let's do a man of the match very quickly around the room.
Me first?
Yeah, go on.
Wintle, 100%.
Joe?
Yeah. Oh,
sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
I've just got to pieces, haven't I? Sorry, Sean, go on.
Yeah, definitely Wintle. I thought it was one of his best games in the Blackpool shirt. I think it was leadership, I think, on the ball. And I'll be absolutely devastated if he ends up going back in January. He's irreplaceable for me.
6- you gave him, sure, Joe. Has your opinion changed?
Big Marv.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be fair, he gave him a 6+ and then he upgraded it to a 7-. So, point of order. just.
I'm giving it Wintle as well. I think he was the only player that wanted to grab the ball by the horns, as I said before, in the second half, and looked to drive the team forward to Ryan Wintle. As Sean said, be a bit devastating if he goes back to Cardiff. Right, let's break the manager just before we go. Tim.
7. I don't think he should have brought Maxwell back in. I'm thinking Maxwell. I think it should be lower. I don't think he played. We set up a team to play the opposition, but I don't think he set a team up to play the conditions particularly well yesterday. So yeah, I'll stick with
a bit generous then.
Probably. But I'll seeing that's what I said. That's what came to my head. I'll give it. But actually, it was probably slightly generous because I think we should have thought about those conditions far more. And you only have to look at, as all those season walkers do, the Met Office hour by hour updates as to how the wind speed's going, what direction it's going to be in, to start thinking, maybe we take a chance on Medine, or maybe we look at a different way of playing, because we most certainly came stuck in the second half.
Sean?
I'm going to go differently. I thought it was fine the way we set up. I think that ultimately it's these players that he's put on the pitch at their best should be putting away the chances that they when they're getting into dangerous areas, they should be more composed on the ball. They've shown that they can be more composed on the ball and can be more clinical than that. So it's kind of getting to a stage where you just have to kind of persist until their form improves. And I think we've shifted the ball about really well in the build-up. I think that it was just breaking down. And then obviously I think the one thing that we do have the consistent issue with, which I thought may have gone away with West Brom and Birmingham, is obviously set pieces and goals from wide areas. And that's something that I think he needs to be working on more than perhaps we're probably not giving it the importance that it needs. So I'm going to go with a 7+, but I think generally I would have done the exact same thing as he did. Even at 3-0 now, I would have done the exact same thing.
Great point there about the set piece. I think we're forgetting that. Obviously, you, Joe, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I agree with Sean. 7+. You got to give sometimes the players have to hold up a bit of responsibility. I thought I personally would have gone 4-4-2, but the formation's worked in the past. I don't really think you can blame the conditions because it's the same for both teams. They just handled it better than we did. As far as Critchley goes, you could argue that maybe team selection he might have got a little bit wrong, but he's more than got enough credit in the bank with me and many other supporters, I suppose. So, yeah, even if it wasn't the best performance by the players or by the manager, it's a blip and we'll get over it and we'll bounce back.
Show good bounce back ability. Right, everybody. I think we'll call it a day there on over an hour. So thanks for that, Joe. Right, so we've got the preview show coming on Thursday. We've got a trip to Derby.
Can I just say before we go,
yeah.
Congratulations to Blackpool FC ladies team who beat Preston 3-0 in the local derby today to go 5 points clear at the top of the table.
Well done, ladies.
It's important that we...
Go on, there's a U team game. Was it Thursday night? Is it Wednesday, Thursday night? The way to get for free?
Yes, Bloomfield Road against Huddersfield on Thursday night. I think it's 7 o'clock kickoff. And I mean, the youth team are flying as always. So we've got some really good other teams away from the first team that I think it's important that we keep backing and giving our support to.
Right, there you go. So thanks for watching. Thanks for that. Do like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. As we said, he's up the pool.
Up the pool.
Up the pool.